But joining us now on the line to provide commentary on South Africa's budget is Carmen Altenkirch. She's a director at Sovereigns at Fitch Ratings, for Sovereigns at Fitch Ratings rather. Carmen, thank you so much for making the time to join us. Let's get the overall feedback from Fitch on the minister's budget. What were the key red flags that have stood out for the rating agency?
Well, from Fitch's perspective, the 2015 budget was something of a mixed bag. On the positive side, as a result of the rebasing of GDP, we've seen debt figures coming down, and we've seen the pace of increase in debt to GDP moderate. But on the negative side, despite the efforts at raising taxes, at cutting expenditure, there's actually no evidence of fiscal consolidation, with the budget deficit remaining unchanged at 3.9%. And perhaps most concerningly, we've seen growth being revised lower further, something which from our perspective is a key concern for the rating.
Carmen, it's Gugu here with Nozipho at the desk. What particular alternatives do you think the minister could have maybe made use of in this budget speech?
Well, to be honest, the minister really does face a very difficult task in terms of balancing the need to continue spending on priority areas such as infrastructure and education, and also consolidate the budget deficit. One only needs to look, for example, at efforts to raise revenue, where in our view it was slightly below target at 8 billion against a two-year target of 27 billion. And this really reflects the fact that the minister probably felt that given the pressure that consumers are already under, raising revenue further would perhaps be too difficult.
Carmen, Nozipho again, would you then say that a ratings downgrade is on the cards for South Africa?
Well, to be fair, Fitch has South Africa's rating at BBB with a negative outlook, suggesting that negative action is possible over the next 2 years. And the three things that we'll be looking at very carefully is what's happening with growth. We'll be analyzing the budget very carefully at the time of the committee, and we'll also be having a look at what's happening on the external front.
You make no mention of state-owned entities like Eskom.
Well, certainly one of the key factors that we were watching for in the budget was further detail on the government's plan to raise the 23 billion rand that Eskom requires. We would have perhaps liked to see some detail of precisely what assets were going to be sold. However, the minister did mention that the first tranche of the 23 billion rand would be forthcoming for Eskom in June, which is certainly encouraging.
Carmen, how important is the upcoming public sector wage negotiations? Understanding that an allocation of 6.6% increase has been made for in the budget, and then putting that against the history that we've seen in terms of the double-digit increases that unions usually demand in the South African labour context. Are you watching this with a keen eye?
We are indeed watching that with a very, very keen eye. In fact, South Africa's public spending on public sector wages is second only to Argentina in emerging market countries. And yes, certainly, if the unions are able to gain more than 6.6% allocated in the budget, then that really brings into question Minister Nene's ability to consolidate public finances.
Carmen, just to close off with, given South Africa's financial standing at the moment, the growth estimations and where we fare, how do you think we compare in comparison to our international emerging market counterparts?
Well, I think in comparison to other emerging markets, there are certainly a number of factors in South Africa's favour. South Africa has a very sound and well-respected banking system. It has a very liquid foreign exchange market. South Africa, unlike a lot of emerging markets, isn't dependent on Eurobonds in order to fund its budget deficit. It can largely fund it out of a very liquid domestic bond market. However, on the other side, South Africa faces significant challenges. Growth, particularly in per capita income compared to its BBB peers, is very weak. Debt is comparatively higher. And undoubtedly, South Africa faces significant social challenges, particularly around high levels of unemployment.